The steady hum of Artemis Station was a comforting backdrop to Elias Vance's thoughts. The galactic hub was a masterpiece of cooperative engineering, its spires and domes suspended against the endless black of space. A bustling sanctuary of commerce, diplomacy, and intrigue, it was the perfect place for humanity to remain unnoticed. Elias walked through the station's grand concourse, his sharp eyes hidden behind a casual smile. Around him, species from across the galaxy mingled, towering, insectothalaxians, shimmering, translucent calorie, and squat, cyanograxians. The humans blended in, small in number and demeanor, their carefully crafted image one of deference and politeness. It was a role they played well, too well. A low vibration thrummed beneath Elias's feet. He paused, glancing up. The station's ambient lights flickered slightly before stabilizing. Moments later, a deep voice crackled over the public address system. "Attention, residents of Artemis Station. Delegates from the Ixarn Dominion have arrived and requested an immediate audience with the Galactic Council." The announcement sparked murmurs. The Ixarn Dominion was a rising power, known for its aggressive expansion and disdain for diplomacy. Elias felt a familiar tension coil in his chest. If the Ixarn had come, it was not for idle chatter. He tapped the communicator on his wrist. "Naya, prep the conference room. I'll be heading straight there." "Understood, Captain," came the crisp reply from his second-in-command. Elias made his way to the council chambers, his pace measured despite the urgency. Inside, the circular room gleamed with polished metals and soft lighting. Representatives from dozens of species were already seated in their designated alcoves. The Ixarn delegation entered with a dramatic flourish. Overlord Kretax led the group, his broad, reptilian frame adorned with ceremonial armor. His scaled face twisted into what could only be described as a predatory grin as he took the floor. "Esteemed members of the Galactic Council," Kretax began, his guttural voice reverberating, "I bring news of great opportunity, and a warning." Elias leaned forward slightly, studying the Ixarn leader's posture. Kretax radiated arrogance, his every movement calculated to intimidate. The Overlord's gaze swept the room before landing on Elias. "Humans," he said, dragging the word out as if tasting it. "A species of little consequence. Weak. Naive. Yet oddly persistent. You've managed to carve out a meager existence on the edge of civilized space." Several council members shifted uncomfortably. The insult was obvious, but no one spoke. Elias maintained his composure, though his jaw tightened. Kretax continued, "The Ixarn Dominion is prepared to offer protection to these fragile creatures. In exchange, they will contribute to the greater good as laborers, under our guidance." A ripple of unease spread through the chamber. It was a thinly veiled threat. The Ixarn weren't offering protection, they were demanding servitude. Elias stood, his diplomatic mask firmly in place. "Overlord Kretax, humanity appreciates your concern. However, we've thrived without external guidance. Our colonies are self-sufficient, and we seek only peaceful coexistence." Kretax's grin widened, exposing rows of sharp teeth. "Peaceful coexistence? A noble sentiment, Captain Vance, but one born of weakness. Your people cannot possibly defend themselves against the forces arrayed in this galaxy. Refuse our offer, and you will face the consequences." Elias met his gaze without flinching. "Humanity has faced many challenges before. We do not bow to threats." The tension in the room was palpable. Kretax's eyes narrowed, but he said nothing further. With a dismissive gesture, he turned and left the chamber, his entourage following closely. Elias sat back down, exhaling slowly. The Ixarn leader's words were not empty boasts. Reports had already come in of their fleet attacking Nemia Colony, a remote human settlement. The survivors' fates were grim, captivity, if not worse. Later, in a private meeting room, Elias gathered his advisors. Naya Korin, his second-in-command, projected a hologram of the Nemia system. "The colony's been hit hard," she said, her voice steady despite the grim news. "Ixarn forces overwhelmed the local defenses. Survivors have been taken to their flagship. Elias frowned. And the Council? They won't intervene. Officially, this is a regional dispute. Unofficially, no one wants to provoke the Ixarn, Naya replied bitterly. Elias clenched his fists, his mind racing. For years, humanity had played the part of the harmless newcomer. It was a calculated strategy, one that allowed them to grow unnoticed. But now, that strategy was a liability. We need options, Elias said. Naya hesitated before speaking. Captain, there's something else. Preliminary scans of the Ixarn fleet indicate they're overextended. If we act swiftly, we could mount a covert operation to extract the prisoners. That would mean revealing some of our capabilities, Elias said. Yes, Naya admitted. But if we don't act, we lose more than lives. We lose credibility, and we invite further attacks. Elias stared at the hologram, weighing the risks. Humanity's survival depended on staying underestimated, but the Ixarn had left them no choice. Begin preparations for the mission, he said finally. But keep it quiet. We reveal nothing unless absolutely necessary. Naya nodded and left to make the arrangements. Alone, Elias leaned back in his chair, his thoughts heavy. The memory of his early training surfaced unbidden. He had been taught that Earth's status as a death world, a planet teeming with danger and adversity, was both humanity's greatest strength and its most guarded secret. The galaxy would not welcome a species evolved to survive such a world. They would fear it, and fear bred hostility. But survival wasn't optional. A chime interrupted his thoughts. Elias tapped his communicator. Yes? A technician's voice came through. Captain, we've intercepted a transmission. Kretax is broadcasting footage of the captured humans. He's using it to rally support for his campaign. Elias closed his eyes briefly, his resolve hardening. Understood. Keep me updated, he said. As the connection ended, Elias stood and walked to the viewport. The stars stretched endlessly before him, their light cold and distant. Let them underestimate us, he murmured. For now. But even as he spoke, Elias knew the time for hiding was running out. The cold glow of holographic screens filled the dimly lit briefing room. Elias stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back, as his team silently absorbed the grim images before them. The Ixarn flagship loomed on the display like a beast in the dark, its spiked hull orbiting the ruins of Nemia colony. Captured humans were being paraded in chains, their hollow eyes broadcast to the galaxy as Kretax's forces celebrated their victory. Elias's voice cut through the silence. This isn't just a provocation. Kretax is making an example of us. Naya Korin, seated at the table's edge, spoke up. The Council is still debating whether this qualifies as an act of aggression. They won't commit. Typical, muttered Lieutenant Dren, a tactical officer. They'll sit and squabble until Kretax tightens his grip on our colonies. Then they'll call it an unfortunate inevitability. Elias turned to Naya. What's the status of our extraction plan? She tapped her wrist pad, pulling up a detailed schematic of the Ixarn flagship. We've identified a weak point in their patrol rotations. It's narrow, 20 minutes at most, but we can use it to insert a strike team. The prisoners are held here, she said, pointing to a section deep within the ship. Security is tight, but we've cracked their comms encryption. We can misdirect their patrols for a short window. Dren frowned. Even with the window, this is high risk. If anything goes wrong, they'll realize how far ahead we are in tech. That blows our cover wide open. Elias's expression darkened. The longer we wait, the more leverage Kretax gains. If we don't act now, we send a message to every species watching that humanity can be broken. I won't let that happen. Silence settled over the room as the weight of his words sank in. Finally, Naya nodded. The strike team is ready. They're waiting for your go. Elias didn't hesitate. Execute the plan. Hours later, the Aegis, a stealth-equipped human ship, slipped unnoticed through the debris field surrounding the Ixarn flagship. Inside, the strike team, 6 operatives in black adaptive suits, prepared for deployment. Elias, seated in the command center, monitored the mission through live feeds. Team 1, you're clear to proceed. Naya's voice came through the comms. The operatives moved with silent precision, their suits blending seamlessly into the dim metallic corridors of the Ixarn vessel. Elias watched as they bypassed guards and security checkpoints, their training evident in every calculated movement. Proceeding to target zone, came the whispered report from the team leader, a woman named Sergeant Marin Hale. Elias leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the display. Hale was a veteran of countless covert missions, and her calm demeanor had always inspired confidence. Still, the stakes of this mission weighed heavily on everyone involved. Stay sharp, Elias said over the comm. Their routines are predictable, but complacency kills. No mistakes. The team reached the holding area, a sprawling chamber lined with cells. The prisoners were huddled together, their movements lethargic under the Ixarn's harsh conditions. Hale scanned the room and marked the positions of 3 guards. Targets identified. Preparing for takedown, Hale whispered. Elias watched as the operatives coordinated silently, their movements like clockwork. A guard stepped into view, only for Hale to disable him with a precise strike to the base of the neck. Another operative neutralized a second guard with a stunner before he could react. The third guard, however, spotted the intruders and reached for his communicator. Hale was on him in an instant, but his hand brushed the device before she could silence him. A sharp alarm blared through the flagship. Compromised! Hale barked. Moving to extraction now! Elias cursed under his breath. Naya, what's their closest exit? Naya's hands flew across her console. There's a maintenance shaft 2 levels down, but they'll have to fight their way there. I'm rerouting patrols to buy time. The live feed showed chaos erupting across the Ixarn vessel. Operatives fired precision shots at incoming soldiers, their adaptive suits shifting patterns to confuse the enemy. Despite the firefight, the strike team maintained their focus, guiding the prisoners toward the extraction point. Keep moving! Hale ordered, her voice steady despite the barrage of enemy fire. In the command center, Elias watched every second with clenched fists. The team's efficiency was remarkable, but the Ixarn were relentless, their forces converging rapidly. Captain, we've got a problem, Naya said. Kretax is on the move. He's redirecting his personal guard to intercept the strike team. Elias's jaw tightened. How long until they reach the extraction point? 5 minutes if they push hard, she replied. Elias made a split-second decision. Have the Aegis prepare for emergency pickup. Deploy decoy drones to draw their fire. Understood, Naya said, already relaying the orders. On screen, the strike team reached the maintenance shaft, guiding the prisoners into the cramped space. Hale glanced back at her squad. Last man out, seal the entrance. We're not leaving a trail. As they descended, explosions rocked the ship. Kretax's forces were using heavy weapons, determined to corner the humans. Elias's voice cut through the noise. Team 1, you've got incoming from both flanks. Speed is your only ally now. We're moving as fast as we can, Captain, Hale replied, her breathing labored. Minutes later, the team emerged into the vacuum of space near the Aegis. Automated grappling arms latched onto them and the prisoners, pulling them aboard. Extraction complete, Hale reported, though her voice betrayed exhaustion. Elias exhaled sharply. Get them out of there, Naya. The Aegis engaged its stealth systems and disappeared into the void just as Kretax's reinforcements reached the breach point. Back on Artemis Station, Elias met the strike team in the debriefing room. Hale, bruised but upright, handed him a data chip. Footage from the operation, she said. The Ixarn will know someone hit them, but we left nothing they can trace back to us directly. Elias nodded. Good work, Sergeant. You've all earned a break. As the team filed out, Naya approached him. Captain, the Council will ask questions about what happened. The Ixarn won't let this slide. Elias looked at the chip in his hand, his expression unreadable. Let them ask. They already underestimate us. This just gives them something to ponder. Naya hesitated. And if Kretax pushes harder? Elias's gaze hardened. Then we remind him why Deathworlders survive when others don't. He walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. The galaxy had seen a glimpse of humanity's true nature, but only a glimpse. The Ixarn would learn the rest soon enough. The Erebus station colony hung in the void, its lights casting a fragile glow against the surrounding darkness. Nestled on the edge of human space, it was both a symbol of hope and a glaring target. For hours, Elias Vance had watched the strategic projections in the command room aboard the Resolute Dawn, his flagship. Reports confirmed Kretax's fleet was en route. The Ixarn had escalated, bringing not just a punitive force but an armada. The time for caution was over. Elias turned to Naya, standing beside him. "Status? All units are in position," she replied, her tone professional yet heavy with unspoken tension. "We've evacuated most of the civilians, but some stayed behind to support the defense effort. They know the risks." Elias nodded. It wasn't ideal, but humanity had always made do with less. "And the fleet?" "Stealthed and holding in reserve, as planned. The decoy satellites are online. They'll buy us a few minutes, but once the Ixarn realize we're ready for them..." She trailed off, letting the implication hang. "They'll come at us with everything," Elias finished grimly. An officer interrupted. "Captain, Ixarn ships entering long-range sensor range. Initial count, 30 vessels, including 3 battleships." The tension in the room thickened. Elias straightened. "Activate the decoys. Let's see how curious they are." The Ixarn fleet emerged like predators from the dark, their angular ships bristling with weapons. From the command deck of his flagship, Kretax gazed at the holographic display of Erebus Station. His claws tapped the armrest of his throne-like chair. "They're hiding," he growled. "Typical. Send forward scouts to test their defenses. I want their response analyzed before we crush them." The smaller Ixarn ships darted forward, closing the distance to the station. The moment they reached the decoy perimeter, humanity's trap sprung. A wave of automated mines detonated, shattering the lead vessels in a burst of light. The station's concealed railguns fired next, precision shots tearing through hulls and igniting fuel reserves. The remaining scouts faltered, retreating to the main fleet. On the Resolute Dawn, cheers erupted from the crew. Elias silenced them with a raised hand. "Stay focused. That was the opening act. Kretax won't be deterred so easily." Sure enough, Kretax bared his teeth in frustration but barked new orders. "Enough games! Deploy the fleet. Overwhelm them!" The Ixarn ships advanced in force, firing relentlessly at Erebus Station. Shields flared, holding against the onslaught, but the strain was evident. Elias watched the tactical display, his mind racing. "Naya, signal the fleet. Execute Phase 2. The stealth human ships sprang to life, emerging from the dark like predators themselves. Smaller, faster vessels flanked the Ixarn ships, their adaptive camouflage allowing them to slip past scanners unnoticed. Precision strikes targeted engines, weapon systems, and shield generators. Larger human ships, armed with rail guns and kinetic missiles, hammered the Ixarn battleships. Each shot was deliberate, exploiting weaknesses in the enemy's design. The Ixarn fleet, accustomed to overwhelming their opponents, struggled to adapt. In the chaos, Elias ordered a transmission to Kretax. The Overlord's snarling visage filled the screen. "You dare defy me?" Kretax spat, his voice venomous. Elias met his gaze, calm but unyielding. "Humanity has tolerated your arrogance long enough. Leave now, or face the consequences." Kretax laughed, the sound harsh and guttural. "You think this resistance matters? Your kind is weak. You've survived this long by hiding, but I'll expose you for what you are, nothing but prey." Elias's expression hardened. "Then you'll see exactly what you've underestimated." He cut the transmission. The battle intensified. Kretax's forces fought back fiercely, but they were unprepared for humanity's unconventional tactics. Where the Ixarn relied on brute strength, humanity used adaptability and precision. On the battlefield, Drones outfitted with decoy emitters sowed confusion, drawing fire away from the fleet. Ground forces on Erebus Station used environmental control systems to deploy electromagnetic pulses, disrupting Ixarn targeting systems. Every move was calculated, each action aimed at maximizing impact with minimal resources. In the heart of the chaos, Elias's mind was razor-sharp. Focus fire on their command ship. We take Kretax out, the fleet loses cohesion. Naya relayed the orders. Human ships converged on the Ixarn flagship, unleashing a barrage of kinetic weapons. The flagship's shields flared and buckled under the sustained assault. On his command deck, Kretax's arrogance was giving way to desperation. Sparks rained from damaged consoles as his crew scrambled to maintain control. "How are they doing this?" he snarled. "These humans are supposed to be weaklings." An officer hesitated. "Their tactics, they're unlike anything we've faced. It's as if they were prepared for us." Kretax slammed a clawed fist onto the console, denting the metal. "No! I will not be defeated by these vermin. Redirect all power to weapons. I want that station obliterated." Elias watched as the Ixarn flagship began charging its primary cannon. The power surge was unmistakable. "Naya, status on the railguns?" "Fully operational, Captain." "Good. Target their core." "Fire on my mark." The Ixarn flagship's weapon system hummed ominously, its cannon aimed directly at Erebus Station. Elias waited, his heartbeat steady. Timing was everything. "Now!" The station's railguns fired simultaneously, their kinetic slugs piercing the flagship's weakened shields and striking its reactor core. The resulting explosion was catastrophic, consuming the vessel in a fiery blaze. With Kretax dead and his flagship destroyed, the remaining Ixarn ships faltered. Human forces pressed the advantage, dismantling their fleet with relentless precision. Elias stood at the center of the command room, his expression unreadable as victory became certain. "Signal the fleet. Begin mop-up operations. Offer surrender terms to any survivors." The battle was over within hours. What remained of the Ixarn fleet limped away, their forces shattered and humiliated. Later, Elias addressed the galaxy in a broadcast that reached every corner of known space. He stood in full uniform, the Earth emblem gleaming on his chest. "To the species of the galaxy," he began, his voice steady but resolute. "Humanity has always sought peace. We have done so not out of weakness, but out of choice. Today, the Ixarn Dominion learned what happens when that choice is taken from us." His gaze pierced through the screen, unyielding. "We are Deathworlders. We have survived the worst our world had to offer, and we will survive this galaxy as well. Let this serve as a warning. We will defend our people, our colonies, and our future. If you challenge us, you will face the same fate as the Ixarn." Elias ended the broadcast, the weight of his words hanging in the air. As the crews celebrated their hard-won victory, Elias stood by the viewport, staring into the vast expanse of space. Naya approached quietly. "You think they'll come for us now?" she asked. "Some will," Elias said. "Others will think twice. Either way, the mask is off. No more hiding." Naya nodded, a faint smile on her lips. "About time, don't you think?" Elias didn't answer, but for the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a moment of pride. Humanity had revealed its true nature, and the galaxy would never forget it.